Alright, so before we start, I have to know that you should have at least a basic level of JavaScript, or if you don't know, if you know another language very well, I think you can figure things out. HTML and CSS is also required, basic CSS and HTML at least at medium level. You might have a hard time understanding the concepts if you don't have the foundations, but if you're really confident in yourself, go ahead, you can take it as a challenge. I will try to make things as simple as possible. So React is referred to as a framework, but it's actually a library that helps people build front-end faster. People use it in a framework way, so that's why you often hear people refer to it as a framework, but it's actually a library. So let's first see how you would build a website old school with HTML, CSS and JavaScript, and then we will add React so you will understand how it fits and why it's so effective. So in a classical way of developing a website, you would have an HTML file that represents the page you want to code, and then you would have the JavaScript that attaches to it so you can work with its content. I have here an example of a div block that has a class called L, and after that we use the standard JavaScript command document get_element by class name. You should be familiar with that. And we specify the class, and now the div is in a variable basically. Now you can do whatever you want with it, and I wrote my name is Alex. All right, just basic stuff. You can use jQuery instead of vanilla JavaScript, but in essence it's the same thing. With jQuery you just write code in fewer lines and generally more intuitive. Now imagine you build a whole platform with a bunch of things that appear and disappear dynamically with this approach. It's hard, not impossible of course, but hard and time consuming. You would literally have a bunch of files with long JavaScript code that is hard to read and hard to understand, especially if you did not build the project yourself, but you are asked to improve it. My recommendation is that if you have a small website or a website that does not have much dynamic content here and there, like a simple landing page, you can go with the classical approach, but for everything that is not that, you need a better approach. And here React comes and saves the day. React has a different approach for building user interfaces. I'm interested to make you understand what React brings to the table, why anyone uses it, and you gotta understand that if you have a good grasp of the fundamentals, ideas, and concepts, then you will understand the details just like that. Let me just show you this drawing, and you can have a better understanding. Alright, so first of all, React consists of only one page, just one HTML page. You will never have more. This page is used to show anything that we want, and what we want to show is managed by React from these JavaScript files. The HTML file that holds all our app is called index.html. It always will be called like that. If you change it, the app will break. It looks like that. What we have here is just a div with a ID called root, and that's it, no more, no less. Then we have the most important JavaScript file, which is our entry point. This is where our app starts. This is the file that is imported into index.html and puts into the root div the content of whatever we want to show. This file is called index.jsx, and it has within it a function called the render, which is a standard function imported from React DOM. Remember, React is a library that we hypothetically installed, so we can import things from it. The first argument that this function receives is a React component, which I will show you in a second what that means. And the second argument is the the HTML element that we want to insert our React component into. So this is the element from index HTML, remember. So what the render function does is just to introduce within this HTML file this React component, which I will show you in a second what that means. Now, what a React component is, here comes the difference between classical vanilla JavaScript and React. A React component is a function that returns HTML code. So just let me repeat that. A React component is a function that returns HTML code. It has an extension called JSX when you write with JavaScript, and TSX when you write with TypeScript. JSX is just the same JavaScript or .js, but it's modified by React so that it can support everything React needs. You know, like functions, returning plain JavaScript, which regular JavaScript cannot do. Say we have About Me page. Then this page is a component. Just let me zoom in a bit. Okay, it looks like this. Now we can hypothetically have another page, which is, for example, contact page. That's also a component. The whole React is based on components. A component here, a component there, and that's what user sees. The page nav bar is also a component. We can have a component for everything. For a list of photos, for big forms with lots of inputs and so on. Components are just pieces of HTML that are somewhat independent. It's JavaScript and return HTML. I think you got the idea. And the magic behind all this is that we can import components within each other. So the navbar component can be imported into About Me page, so that we can go on it. So that when we go on it, we would have a navbar on that page. I don't know why I wrote these two lines. Alright, so basically this code and goes into the about JSX when the whole thing is compiled. So that means that we can have components within components within components. If you haven't understood yet, just bear with me. I promise it will make sense in the following videos. This is the general concept of React. You can call it an overview, a holistic view from the top. In the next videos, I will show you the next two pieces that make up React framework, which is state and props. See you then.